Howdy friends, we have a very special guest today, Pinball. Pinball is the host of Pinball Preparedness and Pinball Prepping, two great channels, and I have an honor of calling Pinball my virtual friend. By the way, if you guys haven't checked the Pinball Preparedness yet, please go ahead and do so. I love the channel because everything that Pinball talks about resonates with me. He is the guy with common sense, reason, and logic. And this is such a rare quality to find something like that, sharing his opinions. I mean, literally, every single video Pinball does, I say, wow, I really think so also. Then, he's not only a guy who just shares good opinions with everyone, he's also the leader of the community of like-minded people that consists of somewhere around 60,000 people, I think. So I'm really glad and honored to have Pinball today. So hi there and welcome for joining us today.
Hey, Constantine.
We met some time ago. We talk frequently, we Skyped, we email each other. And Pinball was kind enough to ask me a few questions about how I see certain things in Russia and in the United States. That was way back. He made a video and he posted it on his channel, and we've decided to do same thing, but it's my turn to ask questions.
That's a great idea. I'll do this again. I mean, you and I get a chance to talk. We've Skyped and emailed back and forth and whatever, and conversations that we have, everybody's not really privy to, and it's kind of fun talking, learning more from each other and everything. So yeah, I'd be happy to answer some of these questions. So, all right, so let me get into some of these here real quick and we'll go from there.
This time, I want to hear Pinball's takes on Russia. Pinball is married to a wonderful Russian lady, Mrs. Pinball, and he's been to Russia. He's seen things with his own eyes, and it's so interesting for me personally to learn his opinions on a few things, and I think that you're gonna like it very much too. So without further ado, let's get into the questions. My first question is, Pinball, what expectations of Moscow and Russia did you have before you came to Russia for the first time?
What expectations did I have of Russia and Moscow? Okay, before I came over. What did I think after I got acquainted with the city? Well, okay, we got to remember this first. Okay, it was more than 6 years ago I was there, and I'm assuming there's been a lot of things that have changed. I mean, from stuff that you've told me, from stuff that I've seen in the news. I mean, just one, for example, I saw that the Moscow Metro now has all new trains and everything like that. But expectations I had before I came. Now, remember, when I came, it was late April, early May of 2015. So, before all the craziness that's going on in the world right now, still a regular deal. The big expectation I had, of course, was this is my first chance to meet Mrs. P in person. Okay, obviously we talked for about 6 months and, finally got a chance to go over. I didn't know too much of what to expect because all of the education, if you will, that I had about Russia was more from the Soviet era. And then everything, Mrs. P, of course, like I said, 6 months of talking before me coming over there every day, told me a lot of how things had become different since the collapse of the Soviet Union, and Russia becoming just an independent nation on its own at that point.
And you see, this is exactly the reason why I started First Letters to King, then I renamed it to Inside Russia, because people have very strange understanding of Russia. A lot of misconceptions, and I think a lot of it still coming from Soviet Union. So I decided to spread truth about this country, the good and the bad, and even better than, with my words, through the lens of my camera on Inside Russia channel.
I still, again, old habits die hard. I still imagined people just kind of hunching down a little bit, not wanting to be too open or anything like that. I was expecting to see a little bit more of an impoverished country than actually what I did. What I thought after I got there is like, if you wouldn't have told, if I wouldn't have heard everybody speaking Russian and seen all the signs in Russian and everything like that, if you'd have taken all that out, I could have been in any big city in the United States. Okay. When we went up to St. Petersburg, that was a little different. St. Petersburg was more, how do I want to put it, more old Russia, I guess, if you will. It wasn't quite as modern as Moscow was at that point. So that St. Petersburg was a lot more of what I expected than what I got in Moscow. Moscow, I saw a vibrant 21st century city. St. Petersburg still seemed to be a little bit more of the old world, I guess, if you will. But all in all, I mean, both were really cool to see.
And you are absolutely right, because Moscow and St. Petersburg are a completely different city culturally. St. Petersburg wasn't built by the communists. It was built a long time ago by the Tsars. It was a completely different country. And Moscow, well, basically what people are seeing right now is the result of the last 10, 15 years, Thank you very much for answering. My next question is, what surprised you the most in Moscow and in Russia when you came and saw everything with your own eyes?
So what surprised me the most in Russia or in Moscow? I got to say, this was the very first day I was there. Now, mind you, when I flew, I was living in Salt Lake City, Utah at the time. So I had a flight from Salt Lake to JFK. I had a 9-hour layover at JFK before I then got on my flight with Trans-Era Airlines, which doesn't even exist anymore, before I flew into Sheremetyevo. And I think that was about an 11-hour flight or something. So by the time I got there, and at my size, you don't sleep too well on an airplane, I was tired, but I was excited to meet Mrs. P. And so we got back to her apartment and gifts and everything like that. And so we decided to go out. And the funny part was where we went, within a few hours of me being on the ground, the surprise more than anything else was how many American businesses, or Western businesses, I guess, were in Russia. I mean, within a couple hours of me being there, we're sitting in Dunkin' Donuts having a cup of coffee and a donut. Okay. 8-hour, well, for me, I think at that point it was an 11-hour time difference because I was on West Coast time. So even though it was mid-afternoon, for me, it was like early in the morning. But seeing a McDonald's, a Burger King, a KFC, going to the GUM Mall, and seeing all the H&M and Nike, and what really amazed me is how westernized and how many Western businesses were there.
I totally relate. I understand what you're talking about, but you gotta understand that this has happened in the last 15 years, because when I came back to Russia after spending almost 10 years in the USA back in 2004, I found a very different Russia. And especially last 10 years, I would say, everything's becoming the formula, okay? The movies, the shops, the restaurants, the chains, the hotels, everything is becoming very global here.
I wouldn't say, you've talked about it before, and I knew this from other traveling through Europe. You've talked about before about, Americans are pretty much slobs the way we dress, and, Europeans dress a little bit more to impress. I knew this going in, so it wasn't, it was sport coat and slacks for me the whole way, so I was fine. But yeah, I mean, when you're walking down the street and, here the women are in skirts and high heels and the guys are dressed, collared shirts and everything like that, people took a lot of personal pride. And I won't say that surprised me, but that impressed me.
All right, thanks for answering. The next question is, what do you like and dislike most about Moscow and Russia?
Okay, what did I like and dislike most about Russia and Moscow? what I liked most, I mean, it was experiencing something completely new to me. Okay. I mean, I've been to Prague, I've been to Krakow, I've been to Warsaw, throughout Eastern Europe. And Moscow was very different. Okay. Again, like I said, Krakow was still very old world, Warsaw, very old world. Prague tries to keep its old world, and Russia tried to really move into the 21st century with everything. Uh, what I liked most about Moscow, you could get anywhere you needed to go by the metro. My experience on trains, if you will, in the U.S. is the track system in Salt Lake City or the Burlington in Chicago. And no matter where you were, either Salt Lake or in Chicago, at least for me, if you had to change trains, you'd sit and wait for 15 minutes, 20 minutes for your next train, if making a connection somewhere. What I thought was really cool, I mean, first off, the metros are absolutely gorgeous. Even though they were built to be bomb shelters, everything, they're very pretty, and all the stores in the metro stations, the homeless we could deal without, but we got that here too. But what I loved about the train is you got off of one train, walked across the platform, and the next one was there. And if you had to wait 2 minutes for a train, that was a long time. So, you were able to move through the city quite quickly, which I really liked that. The dislike part, this one was kind of interesting, and you've talked about it, and I've seen some other channels out of Russia that have talked about it too. I don't want to say corruption or anything like that, but of course, it's there. But it was blatantly obvious, some of the stuff that was under the table type dealings. Okay.
Yes, I do talk about it, but very few other Russian English-speaking bloggers do, because they're afraid. But that's not just me talking about it. Big Vlad himself, every time he addresses the nation, he says, well, the corruption, we need to fight corruption. We need to fight. This is the enemy of the Russian state and so forth. So the corruption thing, admitting that Russia is corrupted, comes from the very top. The Big Vlad.
And I completely understand why, because, again, the income, if you will, of Americans is vastly greater than the average income of Russians. Okay. I think, Mrs. P was saying before the currency got devalued, she was making the equivalent of about $1,000 a month. And after the currency got devalued, it was about $500 a month. Okay. Living on $500 a month here in the United States, good freaking luck. Now granted, she was lived in the same apartment her entire life. Okay. It was her grandparents' apartment, her parents' apartment. It became her apartment. And obviously with the fall of the Soviet Union, she owned it outright. But even then, $500 without having to pay rent or a mortgage or anything like that is still, a very small amount of money. And we had gone there and went to the grocery store, and I figured, okay, one day I was going to cook her dinner, in her apartment. So we had to go to the grocery store, and it was in your grocery store videos, you had mentioned, small, medium, large. This was a smaller store. Okay. And she lived on the southeast side of town. So we went to this store, and what I noticed immediately was the prices of food were pretty much the same as the prices in the United States. Now, granted, this was 2015.
Oi, Pinball, this is so bad. The prices have gone so much higher since 2015, and the last video I made on food prices was, I believe, 6 months ago, and they have gone up so much even since then. This is really bad these days.
Okay. But I'm thinking to myself, on $500 a month, you're probably talking half of your income is going just to pay food. I mean, that's crazy, and that was something that I disliked, not necessarily about the city, but it told me something about the economy. And I can see it can be very tough living on an average wage in Russia to live on the economy.
Look, I totally understand why you got surprised. Just a quick thing. I mean, now I make enough not to worry about food prices and provide for my family pretty much anything what we want in large whatever quantities. But when I was little, like 10 years old perhaps, I remember we were reading a magazine. My mom and dad were with me, and there was statistics how much money an average American family making. But was like back in mid 80s, and how much what they spend their income for. And the income they spent for food was less than 25%. And we were amazed by that number, all three of us. My parents could not understand. They were saying, how is this possible? We spend most of our time, most of our money we make for food, like 90%. What do they do with all that money left, 25%? That was shocking. I clearly remember that day. So I understand where you're coming from. The next question. Is intercultural relationship difficult? Well, I kind of know the answer to that question because I was married to an American girl of a Cherokee Indian heritage. But I would love to hear your take on that.
Now, this is a good question. I like this one. Okay, we have a big advantage that Mrs. P speaks English. That I could see it being extremely difficult if one doesn't speak, she didn't speak English, and obviously I don't speak Russian. And there's not enough of Czech that's similar enough to Russian. I can understand a little bit, but nowhere near to have conversation. Okay, if you were speaking Russian to me, I might pick up a word or two in a sentence here. So that would be about it. Again, there's some words that are completely the same, counting, 1 through 10, pretty much the same. But, dog in Czech is pes and dog in Russian is sabachka. They're not anywhere close. So, can't pick up that sort of stuff. So that part for us was pretty easy. And then Mrs. P is a pretty easygoing person. She's headstrong, like every Russian is. Okay, and then I'm not exactly the shrinking violet either. So, we have some interesting arguments, but, that's any relationship. But no, all in all, no, because, and again, it depends on how open you are to things. Talking about culturally or something like that. Mrs. P's favorite food is hamburgers. Okay, American food at least. Let's put it that way. It can be very hard pressed to find many Americans who don't like hamburgers. But depending on the Americans, you're going to find, a lot of people are just meat and potatoes people. Don't have a whole lot of experimentation going on in their diet. And so, Mrs. P will make pelmeni, or she'll make borscht, or, stroganoff is pretty much similar here in America. It's, not a big deal. But, I've always liked pickled herring, smoked fish, things like that. So there's, that because I had been exposed to an Eastern European background that I have, it wasn't, these things weren't completely foreign to me. So for us, it was not it hasn't been difficult. Okay. We make an exceptional team together. I know she's always got my back. I've always got her back. We think very similarly on a lot of things. Some things different, but that's normal. We're not the same person. But all in all, no, I don't think it's been difficult at all.
That was very interesting to learn. I know so many people who were in intercultural marriages, relationships, and for some of them, things worked out and still working out great. And for some of them, they didn't work out. My quick take, the international part brings a little more difficulty into relationships, but also brings interestingness and spice. And the emphasis here should be not on international, intercultural, but on relationship and love. If you have love in your relationship, then you fine, and then was great to hear your opinion on that. Thank you. The next question is, do you find Americans very similar to Russians or different?
Do I find Russians similar to Americans or very different? Yes. There's my answer. Different because of the culture, but the same as the way that they relate to the culture. What I have found is Russians are very, 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 very proud to be Russian. Americans, half of them, okay, not the Democrats. The conservatives, the patriots, they are very proud to be Americans, okay? The Democrats, of course, they want to be North Koreans, but that's beside the point. But no, I mean, I found the Russian people to be very similar to Americans. And in the time, okay, of course, I can't speak back for when it was the Soviet Union or anything. I can speak for 2015 when I was there. And, different things. Going to the grocery store, the cashier was not talkative, friendly, or anything like that. You just kind of ran our stuff through, paid, and left, okay? For the most part, pretty similar to what you have in the U.S. Went to a restaurant, and the waitress, we were at one restaurant in St. Petersburg, and the waitress was obviously Russian, and she'd speak in Russian, and realized I was American, okay? And so she was kind of shy, but she very softly, tried to speak a little bit of her English, and I mean, maybe don't see a whole lot of Americans up in St. Petersburg. I don't know. But so that, the attempt was really cool, and, again, I mean, the minuscule amount of Russian that I knew, I mean, at least I could say please and thank you and order off order off a menu. I would do that. I mean, I think I told you one time before, the story on the airplane was so funny because as I'm flying over, like I said, on Transair, it was a meal flight because it was 11 hours long. And I could hear the flight attendant coming down the aisle asking everybody in Russian if they wanted the chicken or the pelmeni. And she gets to me and says, would you like chicken or ravioli? And my answer was, pelmeni, pожалуйста. And she just kind of looked and was like, yeah, you were right. I am an American, but I know what pelmeni is, and I can, it was just, but she took a step back for a second, not understanding that. And yes, I know, most of the rest of the world speaks more than one language. Most Americans do not, okay? And I can fumble my way through on 4. So, 5 if you include English. But, yeah, I mean, I found Russians, very similar to Americans. I mean, no concerned about, themselves, their house, their family, their neighbors, whatever would be, friendly people. I mean, when Mrs. P had some friends come over one night and, we sat and had tea and cookies with them and everything like that. And they treated me, I mean, they didn't speak English at all. And so Mrs. P is kind of translating and doing whatever. And I mean, they treated me like they knew me for 20 years. Couldn't speak a lick of English to me, and I mean, like I said, I couldn't fumble my way through Russian. So Mrs. P was translating, but we had conversation for about 3 hours, and it was fun. It was enjoyable. I mean, what I saw more than anything else was pride. I mean, and that was it. Pride doesn't necessarily mean you've got a Mercedes and a mansion. Pride just means you are a good person and comfortable in your skin. And yeah, in that respect, I didn't see any difference. So, but okay. Well, that was kind of cool. Let's see how this all goes. And, I'm hoping to God that, Mrs. P and I eventually, when this whole COVID thing is over, can come back and spent some time over there again. We've talked, it's like as soon as COVID's over, we want to take a couple of weeks and go back and family and do everything like that. I mean, obviously it's not a cheap trip, but she hasn't been home in almost 6 years now. So yeah, I think it's about time. So
look, when you come to Russia, I promise to take you to Russian Banya, the secret spot where me and my friends go to every other Saturday and torture you Russian style. We're gonna take you to the steam room. They're gonna feed you pelmeni and salo, and we're gonna get you drunk, the whole 9 yards, the Russian experience. So come sooner.
Thank you very much, sir, and we will talk to you on the other side. Pinball out.
Thank you so much for answering. That was great. Pinball, thank you very much for coming to Inside Russia and being the very special guest. To hear your answers was interesting for me in the first place, and I think the subscribers and the viewers, they're gonna love it. Again, if you haven't checked out Pinball Preparedness, go and check it out by all means. Thanks for watching, and me and Pinball will see you next time.